them. If you're seeing there's an increase in crime, isn't it? Yeah. Just last night at 10:30 at night, somebody was calling me at night and saying, oh, the people that stole your things on the farm have been arrested. And guess what? It was a neighbor who helps me very often when I need help. I say, what happens? Yeah. What is happening with people that we are having high levels, young people, getting involved in crime with violence and substance use and abuse? Something is going on. 60% of Kenyans feel lonely. 52 feel helpless. Don't you sometimes feel helpless? Serikali nisaidie. Yeah. 33 report feeling very angry. Yeah, very angry. And not just angry, really angry. And how will you see that anger coming out? Road rage, isn't it? That boda comes in front of you. A matatu cuts in front of you. You can even, I tell my husband sometimes, Zingine, I wish you would drive with a collar. Ndio watu wakujue barabarani saa zile una overtake na nguvu this person that has stressed you. Yeah? Because we get angry. Yeah? We are angry. And you can see on the roads, you can see everywhere, road rage. We are a group that are having a lot of stress. And that's part of our mental illness. Now, there'll be different types of mental illness. As we're talking, you'll get to see that there's different types. We've talked about depression, anxiety. We've talked about stress. But there'll be others. But I was talking about the common ones that we often are experiencing. Now, women, it is said that women are twice as likely to be diagnosed with depression than men. You and I. Yeah? And yet we're the ones who talk our problems. Sindio? We talk when we have stress, we go and talk. So we think, because women can talk, they externalize it in Maisha. We are twice as much to be diagnosed with depression and anxiety as men. 1 in 5 women compared to 1 in 8 men have a mental disorder. Over a quarter, that's about 26% of women between 16 and 24 have reported having a common mental disorder. I can tell you that now, in COVID season, starting from 2020 up to now, it's unfortunate to say, but I've done booming business. My counseling work has increased and increased in this last 2 years. Because the number, I think being confined to a space, I'm sure you all noticed that during the COVID season, there was a lot more incidences of domestic violence that were noticed, isn't it? Yeah. There was a lot more cases of adolescent depression that we were seeing. Now imagine adolescents are being very social, they're in that stage where interaction with their peers is very important. Now lock them in the house with parents who are telling them you cannot go out there and bring me COVID. And they're in your house. Already they have their issues. Now they're in the house, they're not going out. There was high rates of depression. Almost every adolescent that was referred to me was struggling with anxiety, social phobia, depression. Depression being highest. Very, very high. Women as well. You saw there was high increased rates of domestic violence. You see, before, when you quarreled, the man could leave and go wherever he's going. Or you leave, you go to work. But now you're all there. And you're upset with each other. Who are you going to turn to? And if you hadn't learned coping skills, the only coping skill you learned was walking away and hang out with the boys for the man, or going out drinking and coming back home at night. Now, you are upset with each other, namuna angaliana. Sindio? So there was high rates of conflict, marital conflict. There was increased rates of domestic violence. In our neighborhood, we actually said we need to start addressing this, because we'd get reports on our WhatsApp page. This woman has locked out her man for the last 3 years. You're caregivers of parents. You're doing so much. Women multitask. I always say sometimes if men had to do half the things we do, nothing would get done, isn't it? Yeah. Because sometimes when a man feels very overwhelmed, they don't do anything. They just, sit like a deer in the spotlight. Because women, I think, are gifted in multitasking. We are able to. You can cook this kuma on this pot, that's spinach there, ugali here, nyama here, and cook all those pots and nothing gets burnt, isn't it? Yeah? We are able to do that. I think there's something about the way our brains are wired that we're able to do that. So we are able to do that. But for men, sometimes they are not. So imagine that with all those roles and expectations of you as a woman, that you have now depression. And with depression, one of the signs of depression is fatigue, tiredness all the time, not feeling like you want to do anything. So you wake up in your house, and the very thing that defines you as a woman, being able to do those things, you now cannot do. Yeah? So you can imagine how that even makes worse how a woman would feel. So I want to look at the Bible and the words that perhaps we can look at when we're thinking about wellness. And the word that often we can refer to is shalom, isn't it? We always hear that word shalom. What does shalom mean? It's peace, isn't it? But peace not just in the absence of war, but it is true biblical shalom. When you look at the Greek translations, when you look at the translations, when you look at from the, it's used in Israel, Shabbat Shalom, and so on and so forth. When you look at that, it actually means an inward or an inner sense of completeness and wholeness. Remember, I talked about internal sense of being okay. Because when you are, then you're able to interact well with others. Somebody who does not have that internal sense of okayness is going to be chaotic in relationships. When you talk about personality disorders, when you talk about borderline personality disorder, that's a person who has no sense of inner, they're fragmented, they are, and it's going to spill out in how they relate with others. There's no shalom, there's no inner okayness. So although it can describe the absence of war, the majority of biblical references refer to it as an inner completeness and tranquility. Where does that come from? And I think the Bible is very clear about a lot of things, a lot of ways in which we can get that sense of inner completeness. And somebody says, you cannot know peace until you know God. Yeah? You cannot know peace until you know God. Yeah? So starting off, we're created in God's image, but we're not God. We are human. And God has created us with a wide range of emotions, both positive emotions, negative emotions. And we call them positive emotions, or we like to call them that because we like to say things like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. Those are positive ones. They're nice ones that it's good to have as Christians, isn't it? Yeah. But when we start talking about anger, jealousy, fear, anxiety, are you Christian? But we are created, and it's the same God who created those other emotions that created these other ones too. We are created with emotions. Yeah? That's why when something happens, when we lose a loved one, we mourn. Jesus wept when he lived on earth as man. He wept. Yeah? He had emotion. He was angry, although some say, oh, that was a holy anger. Yes, it was a holy anger, but it was anger at somebody who was doing wrong in his father's house, and he was angry. It was an emotion. So he understands and knows our emotions because he created us with all those emotions. So when we're in this world, because we live in a fallen world, we came into this after the fall. We didn't live in the Garden of Eden before the fall. After the fall, there's a lot of pain. And I think you all know what happened after the fall. There's been a lot of problems, including problems in childbirth. I don't know whether there was no postpartum depression before. That is part of the fall. Yeah? So we have problems. We have problems because of the fall. We have problems in our interrelationships because of the fall. It is that woman that you gave me. Blame. Projection of our issues on other people came out after the fall. There was guilt. They went to hide themselves, and covered themselves because suddenly they realized they were naked. They were being told, who told you were naked? Yeah. So some of these things, they came after the fall. But along with that, there was also problems in the world because of the fall. Peace, raping, all those things, conflict, war and all came because of the fall. So we now live in this world, but we said, in this world, there will be many tribulations. But be of good cheer. And I like that. But be of good cheer, isn't it? There'll be many tribulations. But there's something else that is coming. But be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. So that's a word of hope that we as Christians have, that those who don't know the Lord may not have that, isn't it? But be of good cheer because I have overcome the world. So the Lord can help us to overcome the problems that we go through in this world that cause us enough pain. When I think about people in the Bible who have had mental illness, can you think of any? Mama, the Bible had no mental illness. It is very holy. Anyone? Hannah? Okay, why was Hannah's mental illness? Why do you say Hannah had mental illness? Do we agree she had mental illness? Amma, we are saying she was not a Mugoroki walking around naked, so she didn't have mental illness. Because that's the picture we have, isn't it? What was happening with Hannah? Okay, people are talking behind their masks, so I cannot hear, but it's okay. I think we know Hannah. Who else? King David. Yeah, you've seen when King David at times would say, smite me, I just want to die. The person who is living that life, who is so excited about, hallelujah, the Lord, and saying, I just want to die. What do you think is going on with him? He's possibly depressed, isn't it? And there was a lot he was saying, they are after me, they are following me, they are after me, and so on. So there's lots of Psalms. When you read the Psalms of David, you can see this is a man who is under siege. Yeah, and he's a man who is not feeling very good about where he's at emotionally. Yeah, who else? Moses. Okay, King Saul. Elijah. Jonah. Although Jonah, his issues were because he disobeyed, isn't it? So sometimes our mental illness and stress and everything comes because of walking in disobedience. But he had stress, major. Yeah? I think of Job. I think the main person we can think about is Job, isn't it? We all know the story of Job. And surely, if a person goes through what he has gone through, will he not be affected emotionally, psychologically? Imagine those multiple losses. Yeah? While you're sitting, they come and tell you, you've lost. And then before this one has left, they come and tell you, you have also lost. Including everything. And you remember Job's story. His was not because of anything he had done. Because for Job's story, they said he was a righteous man. Yeah? I say this because at some point we're going to be looking at some misconceptions that we have about mental illness that cause us sometimes to be a pain and not a healing space for those who are mentally ill or have some form of mental illness. And when I say mental illness, think about it the way we've talked about it, just an absence of wellness. Yeah. So we see how Job had many incidences, and you can see his emotional states. And when he was in that space, you could see people came and tried to help him. At one point, he just wore a gunia and sat for days, isn't it? Not eating, just with a gunia, sackcloth. He was in deep mourning. And 3 people came and they were trying to help him. And one was saying, it is because you have sinned. All you need to do is just repent. And when you repent, you're going to be okay. And then there's another one who comes and tells him this and this and this. And this man, he's just there in his pain and nobody is connecting with him. He had gone through heavy stuff. And if you see towards the end of Job, when he spoke to God, and then God responded to him and asked him, who put those stars in the sky? Who is it who did this? Remember Job's answer. He says, I thought I knew you, but now I have seen you. So even in our pain, in our mental illness, in our suffering, sometimes then we get to see God in a different way and we have growth. Yeah? So there was, like we've talked about Sarah and Abraham. Sarah, what was with her that was causing her problems? She was barren. She was barren. Do you remember how many years she was barren? She gave birth when she was 90. Karen, she was barren for 40 years. Trying to have a baby. It's not that she wasn't trying to have a baby, she was trying. Women. Some of us have burdens and pains we don't know. You're trying so hard for this. And look at how society sees a woman who doesn't have a child. Or you don't have a son. You're mocked in the village as you walk. So that was what she was experiencing. Sometimes in our suffering we make bad decisions, isn't it? But sometimes then in the end God still redeems us. And later on the Lord blessed her with her own child. So that's what we'd call a developmental crisis. A crisis that is happening in your stage of development. Something that is happening. You hit menopause and you start having issues. Yeah, women. We're supposed to give birth. We're not giving birth. We're supposed to be this. We're not able to be this. We're supposed to be on top of things so we can take care of our families, take care of our husbands, take care of our children, find their socks, make sure, as well. And make sure your house. One time I was sitting in a meeting somewhere and the lady who was speaking there said, if I come to your house and I see that your curtains are torn, I know that you are stressed. If anyone has been to my house recently, my curtains are torn, and I'm still trying to figure out what I should do. That a woman with a torn curtains, that means her life is not in order. And she said, so I went home. Now this is the pastor's wife. Cool, come and collected, Betty. Yeah? And now they are saying that because my curtains are torn. I was very disturbed. Very disturbed. Yeah? Yeah. The ones I have not fixed is because I don't have money to change them. Because if I change one, I have to change all of them. There's others I'm also still trying to fix. And because I'm stressed because I'm doing many things, multitasking, I can't. So it's also true a little bit sometimes. We don't have time. But here we are. There's all these things that are expected of us. And sometimes when we are not able to, then it begins to affect our sense of inner peace, our self-worth, our self-esteem, and we start looking negatively at ourselves and sometimes get into depression even. I am not good enough. I am not a good mother because I have not done this. I'm not perfect. I'm not this. I'm not good enough. So our negative thinking starts to creep in. We start beating ourselves down. And if we are not careful, you can slip into depression. Yeah? You can slip into depression or just feeling. Depression has a continuum also. And there's different types of depression. It can be from mild to very severe. And when it's very severe, then you need to be seeing Dr. Frank Njenga. Yeah? Yeah. True, I mean a psychiatrist. Because and there's different types of depression that need medication. So we can also have identity crisis when things happen in our lives. So our 1 Thessalonians 5:23 says, may God himself and the God of peace sanctify you through and through. And may the whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. May our whole spirit, soul, and body be kept blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. It's talking about the spirit, the soul. Now, some people have said that the Greek word for the soul, and I don't know how to say that word, but it is what we get the word psychology from, the psyche, or the P-S-U-C-H, that word. Yeah? That is the Greek word for the soul. Anytime you want to understand sometimes scripture, you want to go back into the Greek. So when you go back into the word that is being used here from the Greek, it is talking about the inner, the soul. And the spirit, this is the part of us that connects with God. This is the one that we really connect with God with. And then we have our body. Now, all those three are related. They are related, they are intertwined. So if you move on and you show the picture that has the three, in the PowerPoint, you'll be able to see that. The soul, the body, and the spirit, all three are interrelated. Anything happening to your body will affect your spirit, will affect your soul, isn't it? If you broke a leg right now and it was badly broken and you were injured and it was not healing and it was what? How would you be feeling emotionally? Sometimes low, isn't it? Yeah? And sometimes you're praying to God and saying, why? So sometimes you may even get discouraged. So we are one unit, and that's how God wants to sanctify and redeem us as one whole. So it's not just when we are singing, praising, and saying hallelujah only that is what is important. God is looking at us as whole beings and wants to sanctify us and bring us so that one day we can be blameless before Him in all three parts of us. So even as we're looking at that, we're seeing that there's a relationship between the body, the spirit, and the soul. Anything happening to one is going to affect the other. If you're not emotionally, psychologically healthy, it's going to affect your physical health. And that's how we talked about somatic illnesses, psychosomatic illnesses. When you're not well mentally, it can also affect your physical health. So when you're not well mentally, it can affect your physical health. When you're not well physically, it can affect your mental health and vice versa, and even your spiritual life. And so self-care is really important when we are talking about health. Remember, we're talking about mental health in many ways, not just in the way that we have understood it. So mental health is complex. When something happens to us, we will be affected. So it can come from something that is happening to us. It can come because of an imbalance in our bodies, in our brains. Like when you hear about some mental conditions like bipolar, yeah, or manic depression. It used to be called manic depression, bipolar. When you hear of schizophrenia, those are chemical imbalances in the brain. Okay? And sometimes there's a genetic predisposition. So that's why sometimes when you're doing counseling, we will do a history taking and see generations up, different generations up. Has there been anyone in your family that has ever had this condition? So we'll do a full history, So when you start hearing, oh yeah, my auntie committed, yeah, even my grandmother committed suicide, oh, even so-and-so committed suicide. So we said, so what was that? Possibly they could be depression. But you see, maybe in our vernacular at that time, we could not say depression because there was no language for it. We called it a certain name, halishtuka, or something happened. Yeah. So some mental conditions will come because of a chemical imbalance in the brain. Depression can come because of reduced, what we call neurotransmitters. These are kind of like what they call them chemical messengers. They're the ones that actually help communication within the brain. So there's different types of them. Some of them are dopamine, some of them are called serotonin, some of them help us to sleep. So when you are having depression, because there'll be low levels of serotonin and dopamine, most likely it's going to affect your ability to sleep, because it's the same neurotransmitter. So there are some conditions that are caused by imbalances, chemical imbalances in the brain. Sometimes they're caused by what we call misfirings of, our brains communicate through what we call neuron communications. It's like a firing of an electrical impulse. You turn on the switch, there's a firing of electricity that comes and it touches all these things and they all come on, yeah? Now, if there's something faulty within that, sometimes you turn on the switch and it comes instead of just once, isn't it? What's going to happen? The lights will burn and go off. So sometimes misfirings can cause you to, it's those firings that help you to see, to smell, and do all those things. So you might find you're smelling things that don't exist. You're seeing things that don't exist. You're hearing things that don't exist because of misfiring. So that has nothing to do with whether or not you're saved and sanctified and going to heaven. You see what I mean? So we want to understand that mental illnesses are different. And they come because of different things. Some come because of stressors. Some will come because of sin in our lives. Yeah? And some will just be because of other situations. So they're not all the same. So when we see that, I think this helps us to know how to respond to people around us who may be having mental illness. There'll be situational things that are happening in our lives that cause us to have depression. There'll be developmental things that are happening within our lives, menopause. We've talked about our adolescent girls. Sometimes we know that when things are happening in their body, even us, at a certain time in the month, because of hormonal imbalance, won't you be a little bit off, isn't it? People know to stay away from you. That's hormonal imbalance. Now imagine somebody where all that is happening, that's your life. Yeah? Those can cause their... so in a situation like that, the treatment is to get medication that will cause those things to function properly. If there's low serotonin or low dopamine or too fast firings, they'll give you medication that helps to take care of those. And that medication is not much different than Panadol or another in the way that it works. When you have a headache, they'll give you Panadol. How does Panadol work? There'll be a way in which it blocks that message of pain from being transmitted. And it does that at a certain point in the brain cell called the synapse or whatever. So it's medication like Panadol. Now, even for mental disorders, there'll be medication that will correct whatever it is that is not going on well. So when our people need to be put on medication so that they can get better, sometimes we are the ones who say no, isn't it? Because we're afraid of the medication. So we leave them, and that chemical imbalance is continuing, and they're not getting better. Sometimes when you are sick, you go to a doctor, isn't it? The doctor will give you medication to take care of the problem. So there's nothing wrong with medication. That's what I'm wanting to say. And we can encourage sometimes people to be reviewed when it gets serious enough that it's significantly affecting their functioning. We need to get them to get help. So here we are. We started off by saying, women, we have a lot of challenges and problems. There's a lot of expectation from us. We're supposed to be this and that. We're supposed to be caregivers for our children and family. And when we are not doing enough, we are told we're not a good mother, you're not a good wife, you're not a good caregiver, and so on. Workers, we're expected to be workers. It's not in those days where there was hunter-gatherers, where the man went out to hunt and you stayed at home. These days we're also hunters. Yeah, you also go hunting and you bring back that meat. You bring it and you bring it home. So we are multitasking and doing a lot, an additional burden that we are carrying. And then women, we also told, talk about your problems. And society allows us to talk about our problems because women tend to talk, isn't it? They share with one another. And some people say maybe that's what helps us. But also we are told, we said earlier, when you overshare, you are also told that there's something that is wrong with you. What's wrong with you? You're always having problems. You should not talk about your problems in public. That is washing dirty linen in public. Yeah? So sometimes when we talk, we are told that there's something wrong and we should not talk. So let's look at some common problems common mental health issues that women face. Of course, the first one we're talking about is depression, because we said, by the way, depression in our mental health world is known as the common cold of mental illness. Nihoma. It is that common. It is the common cold of mental illness. It can be due to many things. One of them is, of course, relationship issues. If you're single, you don't want to be single and you're praying to God to bring a man and the man is not becoming. So you say, now there's something wrong with me. I'm 45 and I still haven't met a man, so you go into something wrong. Shida. And some of us can really get into a bad state. When we are married, now this one that the Lord has given you, now, surely God, what were you thinking? Ananiletea shida sana, is bringing me so many problems. Change him, fix him, sort him. So it could be many relationship issues when we are single, when we are married. When we are single, we want a husband. When we are married, we are fed up with the one that we've been given. It can be marital problems, infidelity, something that's not your fault, isn't it? Yeah. One person stepping out of the relationship, and that causes a lot of pain. And I can tell you that's a big source of pain for us women. Yeah? One of the major causes of depression is marital issues. Women are very relational. And in their homes, we say, if you want to know the temperature of a home, most likely don't ask the man, ask the woman. Yeah? Because if you ask the man, how are things going on in your marriage? Everything is okay. Isn't it? Then you'll ask the woman, how are things going on in your marriage? Chungu mzima, isn't it? And then he'll be surprised like, what? I didn't know you've been feeling that way. Isn't it? We sense the change in temperature very easily in our marriages. So we start feeling lonely, feeling abandoned, feeling left alone. He's too busy. You start feeling, So there's a lot of things. So relationship issues, infidelity, abandonment, lack of intimacy. And because that's how we are wired, and we feel close and intimate to our partners when we talk, when they're sharing, and then when they don't, you feel abandoned, isolated, and so on and so forth. Problems with our children, all those things. Other common mental illness issues that we'll experience as women: anxiety, stress, loneliness, trauma from abuse. Now, I asked earlier on, how are you? Fine. And you don't know, okay, I will not spoil his name. So I will not even give him as an example. You might start saying, hiya, maybe she was just joking, but it's true. You don't know what hole somebody has come from. Maybe where they left last night walipigwa usiku. Isn't it? Yeah. Just because the man is an usher in church doesn't mean that he's not beating up his wife. Isn't it? So you don't know where each one of us is coming from. Yeah. So IPV is intimate partner violence. It's a term that we use quite a bit, but domestic violence, financial abuse, verbal abuse, all those things. Emotional abuse, in things being withheld from you. Sometimes we punish our partners by withholding certain things, affection, care, and so on. Yeah? C.S. Lewis said something here. He said, mental pain is less dramatic than physical pain, but it is more common and it's also more hard to bear. Yeah? You used to say, sticks and stones will hurt my bones, but words will never hurt me. Did you guys used to say that? But sometimes it is better to be slapped than to be abused psychologically, isn't it? Mental pain is less dramatic than physical pain, but it is more common and also more hard to bear. The frequent attempt to conceal mental pain increases the burden. It's easier to say, my tooth is aching, than to say, my heart is broken. And that's C.S. Lewis. And sometimes that comes because of our perspectives as Christians on mental illness. Sometimes some people will say that mental illness is because a person has unconfessed sin. Sometimes it is true. But sometimes it is not. If you remember in John chapter 9, verse 1 to 3, and when Jesus was walking around, it says, as he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And then Jesus answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus, but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. It wasn't because he had sinned, and it wasn't because of a generational curse that he was blind. It was just so that the work of God might be displayed in him. Look at Job's situation. It wasn't because of who Job was. It was a conversation between God and Satan. And Job had a lot of suffering. So sometimes it's not because of the person's sin. Our response can be sinful. But the problems we're going through sometimes has nothing to do with us. It's because God wants to display his grace and his work upon your life. I remember, when you talk about Paul, when he says, I prayed and prayed that this thorn would be taken from me. But he never. We don't know what that thorn was, but there was something that he was going through that he prayed for a long time to be taken from him, but it wasn't. But God's grace was perfected in him. That in his pain and in his suffering, God's grace was going to be seen. So sometimes it's not anything that we have done. So I'm saying this because sometimes as Christians, we tell people, go and confess. When you confess, then it is because you have not confessed. And because you're living in sin, that is why you're having this. So people then feel like if I say I have a problem, they'll say I'm not being an overcomer. I am having sin in my life. That is why I am having this problem. That may not be so. But if it is so, may God search our hearts and see if there's anything that he needs to cleanse in us. So illness and injury and pain may come about for many reasons. And then another argument sometimes that's given is that mental illness is a choice and that it is there because we have no faith. That it indicates a lack of faith. And they'll say, the Bible says, be anxious for nothing. And we're very good at throwing scripture at people. And in the end, we don't really hear them. Yeah? We are human beings with a range of emotions. He says, not be anxious about anything, but in prayer. Instead, do this. When you find yourself anxious, do this. Instead of staying in that anxiety state, do this. Make your requests known to the Lord, known to God. And the peace of God that passes all understanding will keep your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So our attitudes towards people who are not feeling well mentally can cause them, in fact, can guilt them. And that's why sometimes we don't want to say that we are not well, because we'll be guilted. We'll be made to feel guilty. Or we think people will think we are not having enough faith, that is why we are not well. Yeah? When Paul prayed and prayed, and he asked God to take this thorn from his flesh, but it didn't happen. Yeah? God chose to do something different. But God is also expecting us in our conditions with that thorn in the flesh that God has given us to allow him to work his grace in our lives. And sometimes we have to do the work. As he is working out his grace, we have to do the work. Walking in obedience, checking in ourselves, connecting with others that are supporting us, using the resources that God has put in our hands to be able to overcome that particular problem. And that resource is your sister. That resource is the person maybe sitting at your table, your fellowship, your best friend, your partner, your spouse, your care group. Yeah? And that's part of us working through that Because there are some conditions that you have to carry for life in these mental illnesses. If some chemical, things like bipolar, schizophrenia, you have to take your medication for life. It is a condition. But the grace of God must carry you through that, isn't it? Yeah. Because you'll have good days and you'll have bad days. But there are others that we can do something about, and we can work towards getting well. So, doctors tell us if we keep our minds healthy, then our bodies will also be healthy, because we said there's an interconnection between a healthy mind and a healthy body, and a healthy body and a healthy mind. So these are some of the things that we have in trying to maintain a sense of wellness. When we have certain medical conditions, like a physical illness, they say that with some physical illnesses, depression will double. Like if you have diabetes, coronary heart disease, hypertension, it can actually double, the depression. But also it can triple with some other kinds of illnesses, like a person that has HIV, AIDS, and so on. You might find that there's higher cases of depression. So there's a connection between our physical health and our mental health. And I just want to move a little bit faster. So how do we then build our ability to cope, to bounce back, to deal with, to live with? And this is not just for us who are having or struggling with mental illness. It's also those around us in our families who are struggling with mental illness. Have you ever cared for a person who is physically ill, who has long-term chronic illness? It's draining, isn't it? And very often you forget yourself. You forget yourself. And if you're not careful, you'll be the next one starting to have symptoms. Yeah? So we need to build resilience. How many of you remember when we had that COVID had landed? What did we start doing? We stopped going to gym. So what did we start doing? Did anyone notice Langata Road somewhere here? There was always people walking, jogging. How many of you went jogging and walking? Yeah. Me, I never used to walk, but it became a family ritual. We all would sakanya, everybody in the house, we are going to walk. Why were we walking? Huh? You wanted your lungs to be healthy, isn't it? This thing hits you. At least it finds me healthy. How many of you bought vitamin C, vitamin D? What else did you buy? Zinc. What else? There was another booming business somewhere on the roads. People selling what? Lemons and ginger. If you had a tree, you were rich. Isn't it? Yeah, so we did all those things, ndimu, and all those things, and we would exercise and so on. Why were we doing it? We wanted to be ready, isn't it? So that if I contract, one, I don't contract because my immune system is strong. But if I contract it, what's going to happen? I'll recover faster. We were building resilience. We were building our resilience. When you're exercising, you are strengthening your lungs and their capacity to expand and so on. So even for us, whether we are struggling with mental illness, whether it's depression, anxiety, of course there's all these other things that we can do, but we also need to build our strength and our resilience. And there's basic things that we can start off with, and there's other things we can talk about. This subject, like I say, is very broad, and I was just trying to bring a little bit for us that we can take home with us. The first thing that we want to do is to bring balance into our lives, ensure that we can be able to have a good sense of okayness. So one of the things you want to do is nutrition. Make sure your nutrition is good, because you want to have a good, healthy body. A healthy body will be able to ward off illnesses. So one of the first things, when a person is coming in to us and they're having depression, there's a few things we will tell them to do. We'll tell them exercise. What kind of exercise do you do? And we'll say you don't have to go and climb Mount Kilimanjaro, just some movement, some exercise, walking. Yeah? Why do we tell them that? Because there's certain things that exercise does in your body. When you exercise, there's a certain neurotransmitter that is released called endorphins. Endorphins are the body's natural, feel-good, pain-relieving neurotransmitter. Have you ever had a headache and then you go and you take a brisk walk in the evening? When you come back, the headache is gone. It's cleared. That's because endorphins have been released in your body. Now, endorphins, when they're looked at, the chemical structure, you know those chemistry things that we used to draw, those hexagon things with small 2 numbers, the chemical structure is like a certain drug that people take called, is it heroin or which one? The chemical composition of it is the same. But imagine God has put it in your body. Wow. It's in your body. So instead of going to get high on those other things, God has given you a natural something in your body, and all you have to do is activate it. Activate it. And you activate it through exercise. When you exercise, endorphins are released in your body. And your endorphins, it causes your mood to be enhanced, so you'll be happier. Who felt good after you've exercised? You feel good, don't you? Yeah, that's endorphins at work. And also pain reliever. So when a person is depressed, one of the first things you want to do, remember their serotonin, dopamine is low, you want to increase endorphins. So we have them exercise. It's an excellent stress reliever. When you're stressed, there's other chemicals again that are released in your body. And they're not good for us as women. Some of them, if you're highly stressed all the time, utakuwa na hii katumbo hapa. Unajua hii? Yeah? Okay, what happens when you're stressed? There's going to be adrenaline, something we call epinephrine and cortisol. Cortisol is the one that a lot helps us get some of this belly fat. Yeah? So too much cortisol in your system. When you're constantly stressed, okay, our bodies have a natural mechanism. When you're stressed, stress will come. It's a normal part of our lives. It will come. But then how you deal with it is you need to, usually there will be stress. You have a deadline, you have to produce a production. Like for me this morning, I was stressed, by the way, I was stressed. That's why I'm feeling warm now. I was stressed. Yeah? Because I was sick last week, so I did a few last minute things. I took the COVID shot and it did me up. So stress will cause all those chemicals to be released in your body, adrenaline, and adrenaline is the one that, adrenaline makes you a bit. So what will be the result of stress? No sleep, because you're having adrenaline, your mind is racing, you're constantly active. So you want to reduce that presence of that adrenaline and cortisol in your system. So what do? You have to find a way of releasing it, exercise. You have to find a way of reducing the stress levels, meditation. Yeah? Because stress causes what we call the sympathetic nervous system to be activated, biology 101. And then, to reduce stress, you need the parasympathetic to be activated. Things that calm you. That's why they tell you deep breathing and relaxing. Deep breathing and relaxing, because that sends a message to your brain, all is well, and you'll find your body getting calmer. Okay? I'm going to have us do a little bit of a meditation. Okay, who has their Bible with them? Psalm 23, somebody who can open for me Psalm 23. So you can relax, ladies. Don't even open it now. Me, I'm going to read for you, so you can close your eyes and you can relax. Because I want to help you to relax in a little bit. as we meditate upon the Word of God. So take a deep breath. Let it go. Again, take a deep breath. Let it go. Take a deep breath. Let it go. And then I want you to just sit on your chair comfortably. And sit back and enjoy your chair. Your chair is strong enough to hold you. It can hold your weight. It won't fall down, just relax in it. Your chair is firmly on the ground. The ground is stable. The ground will hold your chair. The chair will hold you. You can relax in it. Know that the presence of God and the hand of God can hold you, whatever weight that you're carrying. Whatever challenge, whatever problem, just allow the hand of God to hold you. So just listen to this as I read. And you can put in your name at any point. I'll use my name, but you can use your name. The Lord is your shepherd, Beatrice. You have everything you need. Think of the Lord, the creator of heaven and earth, the Lord. He's your shepherd. What does a shepherd do? He's guiding you. You have everything you need. Other versions will say, you shall not want. He lets me rest in the field of green grass and leads me to quiet pools of fresh water. Imagine that field of green grass, wherever that is for you.
I want to welcome you to our 100K training program.
That field of green grass, the Lord has led you there to the green pasture and to the quiet pools of fresh water, whatever that looks like for you. He gives you new strength, Beatrice. He guides you in the right paths, whatever path and decision that you're needing to make. He guides you in the right paths as he has promised. Even though you go, Beatrice, through the deepest darkness, you will not be afraid. For me, the Lord, I am with you. My rod and my staff will protect you. You prepare a banquet for me. The Lord is saying, I, Beatrice, will prepare a banquet for you. Banquet. Anything I want on that table, a banquet. Where all my enemies will not see me. You welcome me in as an honored guest and fill my cup to the brim. I know, God, that your goodness and love will be with me all my life. All my life. Not just today. All my life. From when I was born to when I die. All my life. your goodness and your love will be with me. And your house will be my home as long as I live. Amen? Amen. Yeah. We can meditate. We're putting our trust in the Lord. There are other people who meditate differently. There's different types of meditation, but we can meditate on the Word of God. And that calms our hearts. So whatever stresses that were making us run away and run and everything, we can bring up. And we can. So when we meditate and we are activating the parasympathetic nervous system, all that, our body now is naturally able to sweep up any excess cortisol. And it brings us back to a place of calmness. That's why after a meditation, after a time of being quiet in the presence of God, you're at peace. You feel calm. So, do you want to live stress, adrenaline, cortisol high all the time? You're always being triggered. You've reached up there, triggered. You've reached up there. Do you want to allow the Lord to help you to just come back to a place of quietness and stillness in Him? Yeah. We cope with stress in different ways. We can do that. We can exercise. When you exercise, it releases those energies. You feel better. But you want to live a life without stress. Because when you have too much stress, it starts affecting your health. Maneno ya pressure, high blood pressure. Research shows us that A-type personalities, A-type personalities, the ones who are always on the go, running to fill this deadline here, make this sale, make this connection, make this. They have higher incidences of heart problems. Visualize it. Can you imagine how much adrenaline is running in their system? Yeah. Imagine. And you see, when you're in that high stress mode, what happens? When there's too much, you're in a fight-flight mode, everything else starts to shut down. Your digestive systems, when you're crossing a road and a car is coming to hit you, will you be thinking about the food and what you're going to eat next when you go across to Debonaire's Pizza? No. You might even diarrhea, isn't it? Even you might kojo on yourself. Because those systems slow down. So stress affects your other body organs. So when you're constantly in that level of high stress, your body starts to shut down. And so what happens? You start getting the illnesses, the digestive problems, the running stomach all the time, the gas all the time, all those things. Yeah? So you want to be able to get yourself to a place of rest. Allow the Lord. Allow the Lord. Yeah? Cast your burdens unto Jesus, for He cares for you. Cast your burdens unto Jesus, for He cares for you. Higher, 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 Jesus. Amen. Let's allow the Lord to help us to deal with our stress. So nutrition is important because it feeds your body. Drink lots of water. Eat well, balanced meals. Eat smaller portions if you need to. Take care of obesity because those are going to increase your chances of illness. When we said all those things of illness problems are going to affect our mental health. Don't do crash diets. If you want to do a diet, take care, remove one thing at a time. If you want to add on new fruits that you've not been eating, don't say from today onwards, I'll just be eating fruits. You will not make it, isn't it? Yeah. So you start adding one at a time. Start a habit. Start eating healthier. Lots of colors on your plate and so on and so forth. Exercise we've talked about. Sleep. You want to make sure if you take care of your sleep, you will be able to, if you take care of your stress, you'll be able to sleep better. But if you are having sleep problems, because lack of sleep also ends up with mental problems. You'll be fatigued the next day, you'll lose your concentration, you'll make poor decisions. Did you know that some of the biggest accidents in the world, like the Chernobyl, whatever things that were happening in Russia, happened when people had done night shift and not had sleep? It affects your concentration. You've seen car accidents on the road, drivers who are driving during Christmas time, there's no sleep, concentration affected accidents. So you need to sleep. Sleep will affect, if you don't have enough sleep, your concentration, memory, all those things are going to be affected. That's why we tell our kids when they're going to do exams, don't study the whole night. Sleep. Rest your brain, your body's rest, your organs rest. But at the same time, sleep helps you to consolidate memory. So the things that you had learned during the day get consolidated when you sleep. So when you don't sleep, you will have forgetfulness. Yeah, you'll find yourself forgetting things a lot easier. But lack of sleep eventually becomes cumulative. Somebody says, when you lose sleep, you'll shorten your days. Yeah, you shorten your days. So you want to sleep. You'll be irritable also the next day if you've not slept well. And you'll be prone to high levels. So how do you improve sleep? Exercise, but not too late at night. Sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene. By evening, you should be doing things to send a message to your body, it's time to sleep. Yeah? So don't start watching the karate movie, wah, wah, when you're about to go to sleep. Yeah? Because that's going to get you adrenaline, yeah? So you want to do things, the things that you play with your children, you sit, you read a Bible story, you have your meal, you quieten down, you do your devotions. Then make sure you go to bed regularly at the same time and wake up regularly at the same time. Because usually what happens when you can't sleep, then the next day you sleep in to make up to 12 o'clock. Cindy? Yeah? When you do that, you mess up with your sleep rhythm. You mess it up. Yeah? You mess up with what we call the circadian rhythm. There's a way in which night and day. That's why people go to sleep at night and they wake up during the day to work. Animals that don't have to worry about are the ones that can stay, with very little sleep, like a cat, Yeah. So you need to sleep. So you want to have what we call sleep hygiene. Don't eat too heavy meals towards the end if you're having problems with the sleep, a lighter food, and so on and so forth. Exercise, but not too late, so that you can be able to sleep. Avoid distractions. Don't get into those habits of I can't sleep, so let me take my phone and start watching all the all the YouTube movies that I have not watched. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock has reached, sleep is not there, you're still watching movies. Why should your brain shut down if you're still keeping it active? It will continue. Yeah. You're activating it, you're exciting it. So why should it sleep? And you're sending a message to it, it is time. And somebody also said those lights on your phone, those bluish lights of your phone, that they actually send a message to your brain. Wake up. Cindy? So you might be doing the wrong thing and then saying, I can't sleep. So me, sometimes I know I'm guilty. I'll say, okay, let me listen to this whatever before so I can sleep. So I think I want to end there. If all else, sometimes we need, the things that we can do, there are sometimes that we need to increase and go to the next level, isn't it? We need to go to a doctor, we need to see a counselor, we need to see the pastor, we need to see a friend, counselor, confidant that you can be able to talk to. Don't carry it, because you're constantly going to be thinking, ruminating, and you can get yourself in a bad place. Proverbs 11:14, where there is no guidance, a people falls, but in an abundance of counselors, there is safety. So know when to escalate it. If things are going on, you're trying to cope, there's still domestic violence going on, please talk to somebody. If you're in a situation where it's abusive, it's affecting you, please talk to somebody. If you're in a situation, whatever is happening in your life, you're feeling overwhelmed, please talk to somebody. Choose who to talk to. But just be able to talk and share your burdens with somebody who is listening, empathizing, praying with you, encouraging you, and so on. Don't be afraid to go to counselors. There's nothing wrong with us. We're actually good people. And then self-care. You need to have self-care and to rest. Yeah? Self-care. It's not bad. By the way, women, there's nothing wrong to give yourself permission to sit on that chair and just read a good book. Cindy, there's nothing wrong. Yeah. We are the worst in taking care of ourselves. Worst, because we feel when we take care of ourselves, our mothers told us, people who sit down are? So you don't sit down and you're keeping on going. Even when you don't have anything to do, you look for something to do. Yeah? Self-care. When you're stressed and you're feeling overwhelmed, go get your hair washed. Let them massage your scalp and you feel good. Yeah? If you do pedicure, go for that. If you call a friend and chat for 1 hour, my friend Selena, we like to sometimes talk for 1 hour. We love our chats. Yeah? You come out of there feeling good. Yeah? Self-care. So there's different ways of self-care, and you need to make self-care a priority because you're always taking care of others. And we feel guilty when we are not taking care of others. So who takes care of you? And who do you think will take care of you? Yeah? I always tell women, you know, even if you don't take care of yourself and you work, mpaka you die, do you know tomorrow somebody will take over from where? Sorry. Yeah. Chances are, let me just put it that way, chances are somebody could. Yeah, so take care of yourself. Don't work yourself to death to the point, because we are sometimes more harsh with ourselves than we are to others. So now may the Lord of peace himself give you peace at all times and in every way. That's 2 Thessalonians 3:16. And that's how Paul would end his letters to them. So I can be okay. You can be okay. I am okay. You're okay. And Shalom. Yeah? So we end there.
Thank you, B. Let's appreciate our speaker. I think I learned another way of clapping. I don't know where I learned that, just the other day. You start with 3, go to 2, go to 1, okay? We got it? Okay, prepare. Okay, prepare, go. Mumeanguka mutiani. 3, and then 2, and then 1. Let's do this again, okay? Go now. Good. Thank you, Beatrice, my friend. My counselor, I think I need to see a counselor and a pastor all together because I'm so nocturnal. I think there's a problem, yeah? Not sleeping. But it's clear today we need to take care of our mental health so that we can take care of others. If you are not okay, you cannot take care of others. We need to take care of ourselves first so that we are able to take care of others. Thank you, B, for taking us through the things we need to do to be okay. I hope we will practice that and we'll keep meditating on the Word of God. When she was taking us through that, when she ended, I couldn't come out of that state, you know. And I kept thinking, I wish she had continued, because we were getting deeper and deeper into that relaxation, and I kind of didn't want to come out. It was feeling like a very safe and comfortable space. I don't know whether you all felt this way. Thank you, B. I will allow those who have questions now to ask a few questions before we go to the next stage. Does anybody? Yes. Are you the friend she kept talking about?
Apparently, we work together at Easter, but we just met 2 weeks ago, and I'm happy I didn't meet her in a bad place. I had invited her for a cup of tea, and I didn't know her. So my question is, how do you get to know that you actually need to see a counselor? Some of us, I think we even need counseling to see a counselor. We've never seen one, and I think also sometimes you feel like these ones I can handle, and you start helping yourself to counsel yourself. But then at what point do you get to see a counselor? Is there a way that you can identify and say, this is the day I need to see a counselor?
Yeah, I think so. I think they'll...
I think that is our reality for all of us. And most times, by the time somebody is going to see a counselor, they have tried. They've tried this, they've tried that, they've tried this, they've tried that. If you've tried and it's not getting better, it's come out, even us when we are sick physically, isn't it? You'll take Panadol, you'll take this, you'll drink hot water, you'll do what, but it is not helping. You're still not getting better. So if you're not getting better, I think now we are destigmatizing counseling. Because I think before we used to feel like if you go to counseling, ni kama umeshindwa. Yeah? Counseling now is and sometimes all you need is somebody to hear you, and the counselor may not do much. They may just help to pull your mind and things together, and then it helps you to begin to have a different perspective, and then from there you can actually move on your own. So don't be afraid of seeing a counselor. People always feel if you see a counselor, you'll see them forever. They never stop, isn't it? We think you'll see the first time, and then they'll tell you, come tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and that now when I start, I don't have money. No, it's not necessarily. Look for a good counselor, get referrals, and be specific about what it is. But we always say sometimes in counseling, you might think that your problem is the headache. Kumbe, your problem is the depression. Yeah? So once that comes into view, then it can help you to now, rather than the Panadol, okay, do this, exercise, jump, do this, we can work with. So what's bothering you? What's really there? What's really disturbing you? So counselors are there, they're confidential. I think Good Shepherd Church has a counseling ministry, and I think they are here. I don't know, Maggie used to. She just left out. I know she used to coordinate the counseling ministry. Start somewhere. You can start with a friend. You can go to a professional. Some people prefer a professional because you're anonymous. How could you? And they don't know your mother and your sister. So it's safer. Yeah. So don't feel like it's a bad thing. I always tell, especially for men, when men come to me for counseling, I say, you have done great. You've done great. Because I know how brave and how hard it is for you to come. But for you to come, it means you're being proactive and saying, I want to work on this thing. I want to grow. I want to move beyond where I'm at. So yes, counsel yourself. But counsel yourself to get the first step. It's always the hardest thing is the first step. But when you do, you'll realize, why haven't I done this before? Yeah? So that's what I'd say.
Okay, my name is Comfort, and I have let me say 2 questions. A time you might not be well, and you just don't know. So, and it's so embarrassing when somebody tells you you're not okay while you know I'm fine. So it's not always that when people say they're fine, that they know they are not fine. So it's always hard sometimes to even know that you're not fine. And another thing is about medication. So sometimes you take medication, yes, it works, but at times you feel like it's become so straining. Like me, when I was taking medication, it's when I was even feeling much more down. I can't concentrate, I keep sleeping. So you find that it's slowing you down. So it's like, you are losing, let me say, if it's time or so you can't concentrate, you can't do what you want at the time you want. Yeah, so it becomes too much sleep and all that. So it's that one that I wanted to say. And another thing I wanted to say that counseling really works. If you've not considered seeing a counselor, it works. Like I like the way that you've said about the time that you can go and see a counselor. I got lucky to find somebody who was she lived around and she said, I want to offer to you. And she did it. She did it voluntarily. She was looking for me. Sometimes I just don't want to go. But she really helped me put things together. The way you just said, they just ask you questions, and and they bring things together. So you start seeing things the right way.
Start with the last one. Yes, it's true. So the counselor has a different perspective that's not a subjective perspective. You know, when you're in it, have you ever felt like you start at A and then you go to B, then you go to C, then you come back and you're in A again and you wonder, you're just going around in circles, things are in your head, you can't find your way. It's like you know, when you take a string and you tied it until it is tied in so many knots and you don't know how to start and unwind it. So sometimes the counselor just helps you with that process. And once it starts getting detangled, now you can do for yourself, isn't it? Sometimes it's just getting started. I'll go into the medication. Yes, medication, some of them, people react differently to medication and different types of medication. They may have certain side effects. Usually, if you're on medication, you need to just keep working with your doctor or your psychiatrist to make sure that you let them know what the side effects are. Sometimes they can switch and change you. Unfortunately, sometimes they can give you something to counter the side effect. But it is one of those things where you weigh you know, there's some medication where you don't like them because of the side effects, but the consequence of not taking them is worse. So you have to weigh the risk versus the benefit. So you get the benefit, but sometimes they can mitigate on the side effects. They'll give you something to manage the side effects, or they can change your medication and put you on something. Because even with birth control pills, isn't it? So even with birth control, sometimes somebody's put on this one and your body just refuses it. So you have to be changed to another one. People respond differently to different medication. There's some people who are put on one, nothing works. They're still feeling the same. There are others who are put on one and it's, woo, too much. Please change it. So you have to work with your psychiatrist that in the follow-up visits, you let them know and then they tell you, they advise you. And then also with medication, I think even you've seen this with some what do you call them, these antibiotics. Sometimes you'll get some that will make you diarrhea, isn't it? Yeah. So you'll have some fight. If your diarrhea is bad, they may give you something to counter that diarrhea, or they may change your medications. It's the same thing when they give you medication for the mind. The first one is, how do you know you yourself, you're feeling that you are okay? Yeah, and other people are perhaps seeing. Now, I think that's a problem, not a problem, it's an issue with all of us. Sometimes we have problems that others are seeing, but us, we are not seeing. It's called a blind spot. It's called a blind spot. And there's something that somebody talks about, Johari's window. There are some things that I know about myself, everybody knows. And Mrs. Murunga, you all know, isn't it? I know that. There are some things I know about myself, you guys don't know. There's some things you guys know about me, I don't know. And there's some things I don't know about myself, and there's some things you guys don't know about myself. So counseling can be a journey of just interrogating that and saying, I want to understand myself. I don't know what this is, but I want to understand myself. So sometimes you do it because if somebody is perceiving, and more than one person, if it's just one person, then you'd say, oh, labda ni shida yake. But if it's more than one person who is saying this and this, I'm observing this and this and this and that, then perhaps it's good to go and have it checked out. Just talk to somebody who is objective, who is not subjectively involved in the situation, and they can be able to give you some evaluation or some feedback. They can evaluate, do an objective evaluation to see that. What causes postpartum depression? It is just our bodies are different. And, you know, once a person gives birth, the hormonal changes that are happening, sometimes something just, again, you might want to look at a history. Sometimes people have a history where their family members have, you know, depression. But it's just an issue of hormonal changes. And like we said, there's different forms of depression and a wide range continuum of depression from mild to severe. When it comes to severe depression, it even gets to be where a person is psychotic. Yeah, psychotic, they're losing touch with reality. Yeah, so when it gets to that, then a person really needs to be under the care of a psychiatrist, or at least a medical person. Psychologists, counselors are not medical, but psychiatrists are medical. They're trained in medicine, so they can administer medication. Psychologists don't. Yeah, but they may understand some dynamics, but they don't administer medication. So you'd need to get that So that was the question I was reading here. What causes postpartum depression? It's just the changes in, I'm sure you know after you deliver sometimes you start noticing a lot of changes, even your hair starts getting thinner. But when you are pregnant, your hair is nicer, your skin is this, and so on and so forth. So all those changes can result in a person, because all those are about hormonal, internal, what we call in the physiology, internal changes that are happening that are affecting, therefore, a person's depression.
Thank you very much. You've really learned. My question, okay, one has been answered about how one can know the baseline about their mental health. But the second one is now how those who perceive you as maybe a counselor or something, such that when they have problems, they come to you and they expect answers. So that has two issues. One, it creates a sense of stress or whatever upon me, but then I'm also left with a burden. I don't know what to tell them because you give them an answer and you're afraid what you tell them will hurt, even recommending them to go to a counselor. So I'm in that awkward position or situation where, either from family, colleague, or, the way I am, people tend to think I have that skill and it creates a problem. And I feel that way because I can't probably be the right person to give the answer. So how do we go about such a thing or a situation?
I think a common problem that will happen in our environment in the church, for instance, because we know each other differently. I am her friend. So if she comes to me for counseling, I'll be afraid to lose the friendship if I tell her, Selena, by the way, you are really acting childish the way you're behaving, isn't it? Unless we have that kind of relationship that she has given me permission to tell her anything and she can accept it, yeah? So it depends, one, on the relationship and the permissions. We were joking here about permissions. On the relationship and permissions, there are some relationships where unaweza kumwambia anything and they will not take offense because they know it's coming from a place of love. There will be others where you have to be careful and say, I may not be able to help you, but I know somebody else who will. Or you'll have to weigh your words. We always joke with my husband. My husband is very direct, those of you who know him. When it hits his head, he will tell you, and then he'll sort it out later. You are still stewing at he told you this, he has forgotten and he's laughing with you tomorrow. Yeah? Me, I come in not tentatively, but I have learned to come in through the back door. So I can correct you, but I can tell you, I can confront you on something, but you will not know that I'm confronting you on it. So it's a skill that I have learned, and different people are different. So I think all the skills are there and they're important. Sometimes direct confrontation is good, but then it has to be done from a place of relationship and love and permission. Yeah, if somebody has given you that openness and they say, Purity, just tell me as it is, don't mince your words, I really want to know. Advising, a lot of times we are careful about that. We help people because we don't want them to become dependent on us. That every time they have a problem, okay, Purity, what do you tell me I should do about this? Oh, okay, I go and do. Okay, Purity, you told me to do this, it has not worked. So I go, you tell me, I go and I try. We try as much as possible to help the person to walk through. So counselors don't give you necessarily solutions. They help you to find solutions. That way then you're strengthened in your muscles to find a way of working through your problems. So it's lots of skills. I think the counseling team here does training as well. If you have a gift, add to it training, isn't it? You have a gift, you feel a calling, you feel an interest, add to it training. And I think that can help you to become an effective helper as well. Does that answer? Okay.
Hello, everybody. I want to ask a question on self-care. Rest means many things to many people. And there are people, like for me, I work better, I rest better when I am in an activity. I'm doing something. And I find everybody always telling me that, Catherine, you're always busy. And that is where I get my peace when I'm doing something. Is this normal?
Catherine, are you asking me whether you're normal? No, she's my friend. I have permission. A change is as good as? Yeah. So sometimes just a change of scene. You've been digging in this shamba, now you go home in your garden and it feels good. Yeah. I think what eventually is what you feel at the end of it. Your mind has rested and so on. And maybe you get your physical rest in sleep. When you sleep hard, and that is your way of resting. So different people, I think it's when your body does need rest, that's why you need sleep. Yeah. So if you are not sleeping and you are still working even in the night, I would come and say, Catherine, are you normal? But if you're resting at night and now your change is, okay, let me try and do something different, rest my mind in that way, and I feel good when I do it, it works for you. Yeah, it works for you.
My name is Proskovia. I'm a member of Africa Project Against Suicide. And one of the problems we've seen is that in Kenya, the university age group are committing a lot of suicide. We are ahead of Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, and South Sudan. It's only DR Congo, which is like 0.1. You still haven't found out why. Yeah. So do you have any ideas?
Suicide is a very strong message that I feel totally unable to live with the demands of life. It's a sense of helplessness, hopelessness. There's no hope. And therefore, it is better for me to die than to face whatever problem I'm having. It's often a symptom of depression as well. So it could be undiagnosed depression. Most likely, the person has been showing, right now, I'm burying my aunt this Friday. And my father is 88. This is his stepsister. So when I'm talking about my aunt, she's not a young woman. She hung herself. So she's being buried on Friday the 5th. So what is it that pushes somebody? Most likely there has been a trail of things and not getting help. See what I mean? Trying to fix it, staying within your thought, afraid to go out for help. The thoughts are still continuing. In the end, you feel hopeless, helpless. Yeah? So most likely there were signs of things that were going on in the person's life that were not addressed. And they just continued and eventually suicide. So I don't know what are contributing to young people's suicide. What is family dynamics is contributing a lot to young people's depression. A lot. We are seeing a lot more family breakups, divorce, financial problems, all those. Children don't feel safe. And so when we are well and healthy, we are better able to take care. Sorry, you were saying? Completely. Social media, copycat sometimes. It worked for so-and-so. Yeah, it worked for so-and-so. They were also feeling stressed. Sometimes you live and have people who are suicidal. They're good friends and they're sharing and talking to each other, and sometimes this one has done it. It worked for her. I can also do it. So it's definitely something to talk about openly. I think there's even a World Suicide Day. There's been a lot more conversations around suicide to get people to be aware, because even how we used to treat people when they're saying they're suicidal. I feel like killing myself. You want to kill yourself? Enda, shika kamba. And we give them a rope, isn't it? Yeah? We say, even if you think a person is seeking attention, take them seriously because they're asking for help. Get them the help that they need. So don't be the ones that are encouraging them. I can even show you which tree to jump from. And so on. Yeah. So there's going to be a lot. Before the person actually commits suicide, there'll have been a lot that's going on, and perhaps you've noticed, but there was no help that was given. Yeah. Yes, Mary?
Thank you. How can you help a person? Maybe you've seen them having problems because they want to do 1,001 things at a time. And they come to you, maybe telling you that so-and-so is telling me that I have bipolar or stress or things of the sort. And I wonder, I'm okay. And these people are, or this person is telling me to go and see a doctor or a psychiatrist. But I feel I am okay. This person, I think he's the one, or they are the ones who are sick. Huh? They are pushing me. They are telling me that I'm this way and that way. I want that person to tell me which doctor have they taken me to, and they have said that I'm sick. How can you help such a person maybe to be treated? Thank you.
I'm sure you all have an answer to that. What do you think that is? Denial. Yeah? And denial is basically, what would it mean if I accepted that I have a problem? You know? So it is easier to go into denial and live like, or lack of awareness or denial. And you have to go pole to break that denial. Maybe a second person, maybe a third person who has also observed. I think more voices can be able to help in breaking the denial. But it's simply a denial. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of just talking, okay, I would feel better and safer if at least you agreed. Let's just go once. If the doctor says, then I will agree with you and we'll do this. You know, you just try to get them to go. Because if they're unwilling to go, unless you carry them by force or inject them and call the doctor to come, they will not go. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sylvia. So I have a question. How would you be able to help a friend or a colleague who is going through depression? Because sometimes can be tiresome when you listen and listen and listen, and they're kind of like emotionally draining you, and you don't want to say no, or you don't want to say something that might offend them. So you want to be a supportive friend or a supportive colleague, but you want to still have your boundary so that it cannot affect you also. So how can you do that? From not a professional way, just like a random person.
I think that's the journey of walking with somebody who is struggling with illness, whether it is chronic illness, physical illness, or mental illness, is hard, isn't it? It's draining, it is overwhelming. I don't know what to tell you, because you might be the only safe person that person has, unfortunately. So if you pull away, what other place can they go to? So if you needed to pull away and you needed support, sometimes you can say, I know somebody who can help. And then now, once you go with them, I was doing something in a children's home some time ago. I was giving some services to a children's home. And her friend is the one who brought her, one of the children in the children's home. And the girl herself refused to talk. And she says, so she brought her, she introduced the topic that this girl, she's been saying this. Then in the middle, she says, okay, now I want you to talk to her. And she took off and she left her friend with me. So I sat with the friend and said, hi. Because she's been brought, she didn't want to be brought, she's been forced, she's come. So sometimes you walk alongside. If you feel you're overwhelmed and you can't anymore, either because of your capacity, knowledge, ability, then you can help by say, can we look and see whether we can get some further help elsewhere? They're already doing sessions elsewhere. Yeah, I think, you keep referring them. Have you talked to your counselor about this? What does your counselor say? Are they moving forward? Are they stuck? You know? So continuing to encourage them, but you can't abandon them. You can't, because you might be all they have apart from the counselor. You might be the one person between suicide and... Sorry, I don't have a nice answer. You yourself can go and debrief. Yeah. You go talk with somebody else. But you want to be careful about sharing the person's stuff with somebody else. So you also don't want to go and expose your friend and your friend's issues. But If you're feeling drained, overwhelmed, what is it that it's triggering in you? Helplessness? Maybe helplessness. Like she's telling me all these things and I don't know what to do. Yeah. Yeah. She's she's the one to go to therapy, yeah? Okay. Sorry? No. Narcissism can be a personality disorder. It's a certain trait in people. It's a self-love, self-centeredness, not very little empathy, but it's a personality disorder. So we have personality disorders called narcissism. We have another one called borderline, another one called histrionic. Very, very difficult cases to deal with. Very, even in therapy. People who work with personality disorders, it's very, because it's like something has happened that has changed the structure of your personality, the core of your being. So to try and reconstruct that core is very difficult. And a lot of times it could be because of early childhood issues that they have. But it's a personality disorder. Yes.
For me, it's not actually a question, but I just wanted to request if you can talk about... Sorry. My name is Nancy. I wanted to ask about mental health in children. If you can talk about it briefly, how they present themselves, because I've had, a child telling me they're stressed or they're depressed, and I'm wondering, how do they project themselves? How do you tell that a child is stressed or depressed?
Yeah, children will show symptoms differently of stress, depression, and trauma, and so on. I want to also be careful about people's time, but I don't know whether we continue until everybody... Okay. So in children, you will know a child is stressed in different ways. A lot of times you'll see it in their behaviors, or depressed. You might see regression. Again, it depends on the age of the child. You might see regression. A child who was okay, used to go to school, was toilet trained, suddenly they go back and they're starting to wet their beds, they're beginning to be clingy, they don't want to leave the car to go to school. You drop them, they're crying, and yet before, they were okay. So they've regressed. There were some things developmentally they had mastered. They were able to do. This child, you drop them to school, they're on their own, they're able to go. They're afraid of going to school, or when they come back, they're talking about they're not sleeping, they're talking about monsters under the bed, all sorts of things. It depends on the age of the child. For smaller children, that's what you'll see a lot. Maybe they're talking about, bad people, monsters under the bed, afraid to go to sleep in the dark, Other things in behaviors, like we say, if they used to not bedwet, they're starting to bedwet, or things that they were able to do. You'll also see some mood changes, but a lot of times you'll see behavior changes. You might see them becoming more aggressive, acting out a little bit more behaviorally. They never used to be like that, but now they get angry quickly, they fight. The teacher is now reporting more behavioral problems in school, disruptive, rude, yeah? And so things like that. If you hear stuff like that and there are changes in a child's behavior, then you need to talk to the teacher or the person who the child interacts with a lot and get to hear more. Because that's how it will manifest. Most likely it will be a teacher who will be complaining, or you'll have noticed certain things. And if you've noticed, then you need to. So like if a child, for instance, is traumatized, there'll be a lot of fear-related kind of things. They're afraid of the dark, they're afraid to walk alone, they're afraid to do this because of. If a child is depressed, you'll see some of those mood problems, but you'll also see withdrawal. They're not playing with their children, they're just sitting alone. For teenagers, you'll see them a lot staying away. Already teenagers stay a lot in their rooms, but you'll see them withdrawing more from things. I didn't show you the symptoms of depression. Even in ladies, I think I skipped that slide, but you'll see it also in children. In withdrawal, you're not doing things that you enjoyed doing. You used to enjoy coming for worship, suddenly you're not coming for worship. You used to enjoy being with women, you're not coming, being with other people all the time. Things that were fun, you can't enjoy them anymore. Eating too much. Some of us, when you're depressed, we eat. Yeah, tunakula, kula, kula. So you start putting weight. So you might have weight gain, yeah, because we do comfort eating. Or some of us, no appetite. So there'll be changes in their eating. Either eating more or eating less. There'll be changes in their sleep patterns. They're either sleeping more or sleeping less. They're wanting to sleep all the time or not enough sleep. And for sleep, it could be they go to sleep and they stay and sleep does not come until 2 o'clock. Or they'll sleep and then by 1:30, they've woken up and sleep has gone. That is insomnia. We'll call it chronic onset or terminal insomnia. Or maybe they wake up in the night and they cannot. So sleep changes. They were okay before, but now there's changes. So lack of interest, withdrawal, mood, crying all the time. Those kind of things are all symptoms. Easily triggered and they'll cry all the time. So some of those things might tell you a person could be depressed. You might find also some psychosomatic, like we've talked about, body, stomach disturbances, always going hapa syndrome, hapa. Have you ever seen how people, when they're bereaved, a lot of times you'll see that, isn't it? Yeah, hapa. Yeah, my back, my shoulders. Somebody will come and rub. It is psychosomatic. Yeah, so it is the body that is carrying the distress that the person is going through. So I think those would be some of the ones I would talk about. But children, you'll see behavioral changes, some mood changes, withdrawal, and so on.
Any other question? 2 last ones, if you have. Okay, if you don't have, I will, there is, sorry.
I'm Vicky, and I wanted to ask, she was talking about stress in children. So my question is, how do you begin to address or attend to that?
And if you have a question and you haven't asked, or you are shy to ask, you can write it down and bring. She will answer.
By the way, when you guys went to Mombasa, did you play? Mulicheza? Nyama. Yeah? Yeah. Kwa pool, eh? You did, eh? Oh, good. Yeah. Did you notice what we did yesterday during the... What did we do? We sang, isn't it? Eh? There was funny singing where people sang songs, even some of those old ones. Which is a song? So ingia ndani, ujiringe. So when we go to Nkoroi, you have a shamba. We are filled. We must dance and we must. Those things remove stress. Eh? Yeah, laughter will remove stress. But for children, even drawing. By the way, with children, I use primarily play and drawing. Play and drawing, literally, they project everything that is within them in the drawing. And if they're stressed, you'll see it in their drawing. But it's also a way of releasing. Even you, when you're stressed, go get your kids' coloring books and color. Color. There was one day I did something for Tenwek hospital managers. And we were in, was it Arboretum? I can't remember where. And we all sat on the floor. And these are good grown men from your community. And I had them on the floor, and they were coloring. And they colored. I told them, now draw your life in circles. Now, this is if like for instance, and you guys can also practice it to check your stress levels. Take a piece of paper, A4. Have 2 colors, red and blue. Yeah? So you draw the things that you're involved in your life. Business, draw. Daystar University, draw. Selena, draw. Parents taking care of, draw. Each circle should have, the size should be commensurate to how much time and energy it takes in your life. Yeah, so draw them. Draw. Yeah, fellowship like this one, draw. Things that you do in your life, shamba, draw. Now take your colors. Label them. This circle is for this circle is for this. Now take your colors and color them. The things that stress you, color them red. The things that make you feel good and relaxed, color them blue. If one is both, color red and blue, depending on what it does for you. And then look at your paper and tell me, how are you feeling? If your paper is all red, what do you think you're feeling? Yeah. If your paper is all red, you're stressed. So what do you need to do? You need to increase blues. So you add things that are blues in your life. Hanging out with Selena, let's go to the shamba, blue. Yeah, and I do it big so that we go twice a week, or something like that. Yeah, and so on. You can take a map of your life to evaluate yourself and see how you're stressed. Coloring, even just taking a coloring book with your children and coloring. I had a mother who was having problems with her child in terms of, it was a divorced situation. And she was beginning to feel disconnected. And I said, why don't you guys do some? What do you like to do? Oh, he likes to color. Okay, can you do together? One afternoon a week, they would sit together and just color. And color. When they came out of there, they were just feeling so relaxed, so refreshed, so connected, so bonded in their coloring. Nothing more. It is therapy. Therapy is not talking all the time to a counselor. There's so many things that you can do. Play, dance, singing. As in our house, as in Guinea, from Murunga Est big to the Murunga Est small. We can decide that day it's going to be a dance day. Yeah? I remember one Christmas, we danced and danced and danced, and Mary Okumu came and visited us, and we danced. She joined us dancing. You know that song? And we danced, and we danced. So some days you just do stuff like that with the family. Those are stress relievers. Life is sometimes, we take life too seriously. Yeah? You take life too seriously. If you did all those things, you wouldn't even need to come to us counselors. Yeah, you take care of yourselves. Yeah, so.
Praise God. My name is Mercy, and I just want to thank God for this session because it has helped me a lot. Speaking on this session, I have been through stress, marital stress. Before then, I used to share with my pastor and my leaders here, but it has come a time I just want to be alone. And at that time when I just want to be alone, when they come, they worship in church, they pray, but I feel like I want to be alone. But not just doing anything, I'm reading the Bible, but when they finish doing that, I feel guilty. Just why did I not end up with them doing the work of God? Just want you to help me to that point.
I wish, is Hakim still there? Hakim, could you scroll down to symptoms of depression? I'm not saying you are. Yeah. Let me take this one. But sometimes we need to notice the signs. Sometimes you need to start noticing the changes that are happening with you. Prolonged stress, prolonged problems that are not getting resolved can sometimes lead to depression, and those could be some of the symptoms. Just feeling withdrawal and so on and so forth. Okay, have you got the common cold? It's the one that says, have you got the common cold? There. Have you caught the common cold? So basically, those are telling you what could be some possible things that you want to watch out for. Mine, my eyes cannot see that far. So, persistent, sad, anxious, or empty mood, feeling empty. Loss of interest of pleasure in activities, including sex. Yeah, things that you enjoyed before. Hata now, sex. Mtu anashika hivi. Blanketi ndio utaingia nayo, and so on. Restlessness, in Christian circles we can also talk about sex. So restlessness, crankiness, or excessive crying. And it doesn't have to be all of these. We usually talk about 7 of them that need to be present. especially low mood, and so on. Feelings of guilt, worthlessness, hopelessness, pessimism, sleeping too much or too little, appetite, or weight gain, weight loss, loss of energy, fatigue, feeling slowed down, thoughts of death or suicide attempts, trouble concentrating, remembering, or making decisions, including physical symptoms. So if something has been going on for a long time and now you're knowing it's affecting you, it's not getting better, it could start getting you low. Yeah? And if it gets, remember we said depression is a continuum. It can be just from sadness to now a point where inaweza kuwa shida. Yeah? So when you feel a person has not reached, you've not gotten the whatever that you need, then you need to get a little bit further help. Yeah? And help could be, interventions could be individual, you as a person. It could be for the marital couple, yeah, so that we work with a support system. Because if the problem is coming from here, and we fix this one, or if the problem is coming from these two, and this one is the one I'm working with, and then she's going back to where the problem is the problem going to go away? No. So sometimes then, there has to be that bringing in that person in so that the problem can be addressed at its root. Because what you're experiencing are symptoms. Symptoms of that problem. So that problem needs to be addressed. If you're having headaches, you're having sweating, all those fevers, and you go to the doctor, they'll give you headaches, Panadol, isn't it? But they may ask you some questions, when did you travel last? Okay, so we need to do a test for malaria. So should they just give you Panadol or should they treat malaria? If they continue to give you Panadol, see, malaria will continue. Will you get better? In fact, you will start having other symptoms. So that malaria needs to be treated, the root cause of the problem. Otherwise, it's continuing and it's continuing to affect you, and that can cause even more severe problems. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask her a question. What do you charge?
My secret between me and
I think the other question would be...
there's a counseling ministry in Good Shepherd that does not...
Okay.
She's a qualified counselor. So we have resources within AGC. Mine feeds my children, so I'll try to...
Okay, so second question. Yes. So second question, and this is pertaining our men. Because they tend to stay in a cocoon, they're trying to hide, but they're going through something and they're not speaking up. And you feel like it's a point, at the point where they are, they need to actually see they need to talk to someone. You've tried their friends, it's not working out. How can we persuade them to see someone?
Especially, yeah, I know, culturally. I think just culturally we have this stigma about seeking help, isn't it? You don't wash your dirty linen in public. Sasa nikienda kuona counselor itasema nimeshindwa kuangalia nyumba yangu. All those things. So I think there's a lot of those hurdles that we need to cross. That's why fora like these, I think, help to destigmatize counseling and help seeking. Because it's not just our men. It's now more recently that counseling is becoming a thing, isn't it? Even for us, would you have gone to see a counselor? And even if you go, so you'll go hiding secretly somewhere so that nobody sees and knows that you have gone. Yeah. But me, I can tell you now, in the US, they have their pediatrician for their family, they have their dentist, they have their whatever, and they have their therapist. It is so commonplace, and I think we're going to get there. But for now, a lot of sensitization. I always talk about bibliotherapy. Songesha kitabu hapo asome. Yeah, so you can sometimes give literature material, because the idea is for them to get help or to open up, isn't it? That there's a problem. So however you do it, you can get creative, you can, occasionally you can send an article. They may not want to read it when they know you're the one who has sent, but silently, secretly, they might read it, and it might begin to create an opening for help. Yeah, so tunaenda most, but we slowly try to break the barrier and the stigma. Yeah.
Yeah. The last is just to share a little bit of my story of depression, because let me come this way, because it's I know I'm overcoming depression, and I can assure that, I can attest that I'm recovering, and I can see a lot of change. And I think I've even overcome that thing of hiding what has happened, because I can recall now everything and all the signs that I saw that indicated that I am getting there. So mine was postpartum depression. I had never been depressed since when I was born. I was fine. I was happy, coming from a family of 12 children, being the 6th, just in the middle there. So I just got married, came to Kenya. It was just immediately after my wedding that I came to Kenya. And I realized that things went too fast. I was yet to adjust even to the environment, the wedding, to the people, to the weather, to everything. And I immediately got pregnant. So when I got pregnant, I had a very normal delivery. Everything was very fine. And even when I got the child, my senior pastor wife accommodated me. I was well treated. I was very well. So, but at some point, I started hearing the cries of babies in my head. So my husband was very busy. I was staying at the pastor's house. The wife is working, and I was staying with the house help. I was struggling with Swahili. She couldn't understand. But at some point, I felt like I needed to talk to someone because I was feeling headache. I remember having gone to the bathroom. I locked. I stayed in that bathroom like for an hour. I was just hearing noise in my head. And then I remember Joyce. I called Joyo and I told her I need credits because I need to talk to someone. And she sent credits. It's when she called my husband. So the scenario of how I moved from one hospital to another, some hospital even refused to host me because I was a foreigner. So with document stuff and all that. So I had struggled, but I remember my mom came, but I even realized that she was around. It had really taken me so bad. But yeah, I am thankful that it's now so many years. I came to Kenya, it's now going to 6 years, but I can see it's this year